Before we get started, I feel the need to make a quick note about Disney. The Disney company, through smaller subsidiary organizations, funded the election and re-election campaigns of several members of the Florida legislature who have gone on to craft the infamous Don't Say Gay bill. While Disney did eventually apologize for their part in helping this come about, have pledged to reassess their giving practices, and there's now even been reporting that behind the scenes the company was trying to dissuade legislators from passing the bill, I still feel the need to point this out, and it was all going on while Disney has been continuing to push to market harder and harder to LGBTQIA+ individuals and to present themselves as a corporation friendly to such people. While statements from the company are leaning in the right direction, I am waiting to see more concrete action from them before I stop putting this marker in front of things. You can see a link down in the description for my full videos on the topic.
You know what? I'm going to side with Steven on this. That was a sharp suit. Moon Knight, Episode 2, Summon the Suit. So, continuing on with the latest from the MCU on Disney+. I'm still enjoying this. If I'm truth told, I like the previous episode a little bit more, just because this one's very action-focused, or at least it feels that way. It's very propellant. There's really only one fight scene, but he's running, he's chasing, everything is very heightened and very immediate. It has the feel of an action piece, much more than the previous episode, which was a bit more supernatural, unsettling. And I prefer the vibe of the first episode a little bit more. Now, part of this might also be different directors for this episode than the previous episode. That might be part of it. Part of it's the script. I'm not taking it as an ill omen as yet. If the third episode is more in line with the second one than the first, then I might start getting worried that the intrigue and the unsettling aspects and the more supernatural vibe has just been sacrificed on the altar of action. I really hope that's not the case. I'm not assuming that it is, but that's going to be my concern going forward. That said, it is pretty decently done action. It is funny. I'm just going to talk openly about this, so spoilers, I guess. It is very strange to see a fight scene with an invisible creature, knowing that 99 times out of 100, if there's an invisible monster in a TV show or movie, it's to save on cost, and it's for budget purposes. And I'm not going to say it wasn't here, but it's very clear that they went out of their way to choreograph this as spectacularly as possible with a creature that is only visible when we sort of have Mark or Steven's perspective on what's going on. So it was kind of funny to see it deployed in something big budget like this and still handled let's make this cost-saving measure look as good as it can. So that was pretty entertaining. And also it also helped that the invisibility of the creature didn't feel like just a gimmick. It got established near the start of the episode, and it felt in keeping with Steven just not understanding what the hell's going on. I saw this thing. Why doesn't anyone else see it? It's very much in keeping with what he's trying to deal with in his head. Now, in regards to sort of the back and forth between, not just Mark and Steven, but also Khonshu, I don't have dissociative identity disorder. I have ADHD, but that is a completely different can of worms, and nothing that I've ever had in my life is anything close to an equivocal situation of sort of an unwanted voice in my head. Whether it be myself or whatever. I've had impulses or thoughts that oh God, where did that come from? But it's never been as distinct as a voice. So I don't have a lot of solid perspective personally on how accurate or respectfully this is done. What I will say, though, is strictly as an audience member, I liked that it wasn't uncommon. It wasn't always the case, but it wasn't uncommon for the dialogue from Mark or Steven from inside the head, depending on who had control of the body, to be overlapping with stuff being said by other people. Because, that is what would happen. The people you're talking to in the physical sense aren't going to be aware of when the voice in your head is talking, so they're not going to pause and wait for them. And if the voice in your head is being really insistent, it's going to talk over them. And the show, I thought, used that. It used that to multiple effects. It used it as a really good way of just emphasizing how out of his depth Steven is. Obviously, Mark's a little more used to this, but just sort of emphasizing that this is a lot to deal with and ramping up the intensity of the sort of battling voices, in the physical world and what's going on in his head to just up the tension of a scene was also quite well done. The more we're learning about Khonshu, it's quite interesting. I don't know how much to take Ethan Hawke's character at his word at present, but so far things seem to more or less line up, and I like the idea that Khonshu, for whatever power he has, it is limited to basically sort of trying to compel, and even that he can't do truly, his avatar. But even then, he can only say, do this for me, but he can't actually force it. So I like the idea of a I don't mean to be rude about it, but a semi-impotent god. Like, he is a god. He obviously has some really serious stuff going on. But at the same time, he has very little impact on the physical world. And there's only so much he can do to compel his avatar if what he's asking the avatar to do isn't something they're already inclined to do on their own. It's interesting. And it's a fun balance to think about. And I'll be curious to see how that dynamic progresses going forward. We've now met Layla. She's fine. This episode did dip a little bit into sort of the cringe aspects to a certain extent. Again, I have a feeling this is going to be, at least so far, not something that's going to turn me off the show, but I feel like this is going to be a low-level issue for me going through most of the show. Again, just these instances of, sympathetic embarrassment and humiliation that I feel with Steven mostly. Mark just doesn't seem like he gives a crap. But like, Steven cares. Steven cares about how people perceive him. So, when we cut away to, Steven's in the suit, but we cut away to people being like, is he having a seizure? I think he's on drugs. And like, he's having a nice moment where he's like, yeah, I just punched a jackal monster in the face. And like, I want to feel good for him, but then I see the way people are perceiving him, and it's like, ow. And again, that's probably, at least to a certain extent, the intended experience for me to have. So this isn't really a criticism in terms of like thing bad, but it is a criticism from me personally in terms of like thing uncomfortable to watch for me. Probably more so than was the intended viewing experience. So that does keep cropping up. We get a little bit more of a picture of Ethan Hawke's character, which is nice. I think they're doing a good balance so far of giving a clear reason as to why his view, A, makes sense to him, and B, would be appealing to others, but also in the same breath showing like why this is not okay. Because, it's one thing to say, the problem with Khonshu is he only acts after something terrible has happened. Wouldn't the better world be we don't have the people around who are going to do those terrible things? And like, you think about it at a very base surface level, you're like, yeah, I guess that would be. But then Steven asked the question you need to ask, like, wait a minute. There's this huge assumption that, this person will definitely do the thing. Now, we don't really have confirmation from Stephen Hawke. If he even I'm going to keep calling him that. I think they called him Arrow. I'm probably going to keep calling him Stephen Hawke throughout the whole thing. We don't have true confirmation as to how this works. Whether it is a case of the future is seen in like, this is definitely what's going to happen. But then that can't truly be the case because the future is clearly alterable because if these people are getting killed, they're not going to do the thing. So it can't have been a certainty because we know the future is not locked in, because if it was, you wouldn't be able to kill these people. They would be fated to do the thing, and you wouldn't be able to kill them and stop them. So that can't be it. And so the logical progression on that, though we don't know for certain, is that it looks into their thoughts and intents. And that, well, Stephen brings up the problems with that. People think bad things all the time. People desire to do harm. It doesn't mean they do. And it is, in many ways, the inherent push-pull in society, philosophically, of trying to have as secure a place as possible while also trying to have as just a place as possible. Because in a just system, you don't punish people who haven't done anything. But in a secure system, you prevent the things from happening in the first place, and those come into conflict. And right now, it's pretty surface level. It's not exceptionally deep, but I appreciate that the show is grappling with those philosophical dynamics and conundrums. I would like to see the show sort of dive into that a little bit deeper. I do worry that it's not going to, which again, if it doesn't, it wouldn't suddenly become a fault, but it would become, to me, a little bit of a missed opportunity. And the reason I'm afraid of that is that, Stephen pointed out the extreme, would you kill a child? And Ethan Hawke's character basically going, yeah, if I thought it was necessary. That kind of ends the argument. It kind of removes some of the complexity, or at least discards some of the complexity, because I think most people would agree killing a kid is wrong, especially one who didn't do anything, who you just claim will eventually. That's messed up. So, given that that is already on the table, which on the one hand I appreciate because it means, Stephen is thinking about this. He's not just being taken in, and he's not just a passive entity being dragged along through this. He is thinking and trying to figure this out, and that was a legitimate question. So it says stuff about him as a character, but it also kind of feels like it's meant to end that philosophical discussion. There's nothing more to talk about because this guy's willing to kill kids. I hope that's not the case. There really is a legit conflict and conundrum to be had there with that push-pull of justice and security. And I'd like that to go a little bit deeper than just be sort of a surface level theme. We'll see how that pans out going forward. So I do like this episode. Don't like it as much as the first one. And I'm kind of hoping that next time we can get back into the more psychological or horror tinged, or dive into the philosophical aspects a little more. Like, look, the action's good. I don't have a problem with the action, but Marvel always does good action. What else do you have for me is kind of how I'm approaching this show. So whenever it gets into an action sequence, whether it be an escape or a fight or what have you, I'm not going to say I check out, but I'm slightly less engaged than with basically everything else. And again, that has less to do with the action being bad than me just knowing, like, Marvel does good action. Like, I know that. I don't have to be like, ooh, what are they going to do with it? It's going to be a good action scene. Like, I just know that. So it doesn't quite engage me on the same level. But we'll see how things are going forward. I am looking forward to more from this. Moon Knight, episode 2. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon, that is how I pay the bills. And I'm able to do this as my living. Any assistance helps. There's other ways to support me as well. There's links down in the description for all the other sorts of things that I do. I have books available. I'm on other social media platforms, Twitch, etc., etc., etc. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And credits. I got to shout out my top Patreon supporters, so thank you very much to Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak,
Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Leotha Boyd, TT, Renobulax the Poodle, Eidolon, Tracy Scrabat, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Angry Caspero, Adam Lefty Taylor, Shane Ross, Robin Moore, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Couldn't do it without you.